Hi, everyone. Sorry it took us a few minutes to get things going. We're actually still waiting on a colleague of ours. You know, she's so important. So she's busy with some work over at the White House, so she'll be joining us in a few minutes. But we wanted to get started. I have here Konrad Ng, who's with the Smithsonian Center, or the APA Smithsonian Center, and then myself, I'm Kiran Ahuja. I'm with the White House Initiative on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. We're excited to talk with you today about a couple of things, mainly our upcoming White House Summit on AAPIs and also the theme that we're launching for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So a couple of things I just wanted to keep in mind as we move ahead is to send your questions anytime during this broadcast to the Google Plus page, also using Twitter, hashtag WIAPI, WHIAAPI, or you can also email us at whitehouseaapi@ed.gov. And we'll make sure to respond to all your questions as they come in. Actually, Konrad, I think since I'm kind of helping moderate this a little bit, do you want to start off with a theme and just kind of get people excited about, the month and what we can look forward to?
Yeah, I'm first of all, I am just thrilled to be part of the third, I think, annual Google
we were
Hangout.
Talking about that.
Yeah, we have between our organizations. As I've often said to Kiran, I mean, I respect the work of the initiative. It came into being just before actually the creation of the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center, and I find our work to be similar when it comes to empowering, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, Native Hawaiians, and feeling that this country, this beautiful, amazing country, is as much theirs as it's anyone else's, and the ways in which we have shaped its future, its past, and its present. So it's terrific to be part of this, and I'm appreciative to you and your team for allowing me to join you.
No, it's good to have you.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things that we've worked on is thinking about Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and some people also call it Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Now, some of you may know this month was founded through an act of Congress in the mid-70s, and it was legislation that people like Norman Mineta, Mike Honda, Spark Matsunaga, Daniel Inouye, respected members of Congress who had come together to realize that the commemorative actions authorized by the Congress should include the stories of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and Native Hawaiians. And so they founded this legislation that asked the president to dictate to all agencies and the government and people around the country to recognize how it is that America has been shaped by these profound and complicated and diverse communities. And so this month is extremely important because it is an opportunity to rethink and think about how we have played this instrumental role, how Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Native Hawaiians have played an instrumental role in shaping the American story. This year for us, as in our role of the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, just a little bit more about us. We were founded in 1997, and we are a pan-institutional initiative that does programs, pop-up programs, exhibitions, and digital initiatives that look at the American story as an Asian Pacific American one. Some of the things that you'll see on the slide are actually some of the works that you might be familiar with. There are digital initiatives from one honoring Yuri Kochiyama to traveling exhibitions and pop-up ones looking at Asian Latino intersections through art, or Portraiture Now and looking at contemporary portraits of Asian Americans in the United States. And right now we have an exhibition called Beyond Bollywood, Indian Americans Shape the Nation, on at the National Museum of Natural History. It's the largest one looking at the experience of Indian Americans and the American dream. So for this year, for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, the thing that we wanted to think about was the turning point of Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian communities in the United States. While Heritage Month was founded as a way to imagine the American story as it, and recognizing our role in it. What we also realize is that with amazing things that are happening on television, accomplishments through the arts, sciences, in politics, and in military, that Asian Pacific Americans are everywhere. And so that's the theme that we have, thinking that this would be great for the month, is hashtag APA everywhere. And the idea is to think of our story as an aspirational one in which you look around and you can find our footprints, our participation, our sacrifices, our voices in every dimension of the American story. And for Heritage Month, we thought this was time to celebrate that. Again, from amazing television shows to amazing movies, from amazing politicians to amazing heroes, and all the number of ways in which we have advanced and shown ourselves in our patriotic colors to really advance the American story. So APA Everywhere is the theme for this year.
I forgot to do the drum roll. Drum roll.
Yeah, but we're really pleased with it because every year we want to capture something that is aspirational, that asks people to imagine their life through the lives of others and through our own communities.
Yeah, you guys have come up with some really great themes. I've loved all of them, and I think there's a lot that everyone can really do with the theme that you all have come up with. I wanted to go to Billy, who's joining us. Billy Deck is one of our amazing commissioners based out of Chicago. He's part of the President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And so, Billy, wanted to get a sense from you about what that theme means to you, how you think folks in Chicago or even around the country should think about approaching the theme, and how they might want to celebrate and really be able to share more about what this community has contributed to this country, what we continue to do as one of the fastest growing groups in this country right now.
I love the theme. First of all, let me just say, I not only love it because I've had the honor as a newly appointed commissioner to the President's Advisory Commission on AAPIs, having the ability to meet with APAs everywhere, meeting with AAPI leaders, community members, not only throughout Chicagoland and the Midwest, but from coast to coast. This sheer number and spread of AAPIs across the country is just incredibly moving. And even beyond that, being allowed to engage and hear the stories and hear about the culture and the passion and the beauty and the uniqueness of all the different cultures that make up the AAPI community and their contributions to the story that you're talking about the American story, it sort of magnifies, like exponentially magnifies the reach and just the bandwidth of the AAPI strength and story, and all of that together has really made AAPIs everywhere a perfect and well-fit theme. Also, personally, I am kind of having a bit of a flashback because when I first went to DC, it was for AAPI Heritage Month. This was a while ago after I just graduated college. I didn't really, I wasn't a bad kid, but I didn't have everything sort of put together. I was kind of a little bit lost, and someone said, hey, you should come to AAPI Heritage Month in DC because AAPIs from everywhere will be coming all together for this week. And that sort of blew my mind, the idea of what is that, AAPIs from everywhere. I had my Filipino American community that I knew and was introduced to through my mom and my mom's side of the family. But outside of that, I really didn't have an understanding of where AAPIs lived and came from and how they could come together in this one time in DC. And so I went, I was interested, and it was honestly one of the greatest influences in my entire life because for once I realized that I was part of an incredibly large and dynamic group. I was interacting with people I really didn't come in contact with in my community, whether they were business people, politicians, people that were on TV, in the media. Not something I saw a lot of growing up back then. And it really influenced me quite a bit. It gave me a lot of motivation and inspiration to really push the boundaries of what I thought AAPIs were growing up. I mean, it really broke stereotypes for me. It really broke barriers, and I think it really pushed me to begin to take my life a lot more serious in my future, hoping to one day be as, if not influential, at least contribute as much as those that I had met in DC for AAPI Heritage Month from everywhere, all these AAPIs from everywhere, and all their stories. I think it pushed me through law school and business school, and it taught me that I could be on TV and I could do radio. I was able to pursue dreams of opening a restaurant and hopefully make the mainstream love and enjoy our Asian cuisine in ways in which they would celebrate it throughout the mainstream instead of just within our own AAPI communities. And so those stories and that moment, I really think influenced my entire life, which is a reason why I think this Heritage Month, everyone should come out and really embrace that theme the whole way through. And I also think that as a commissioner, I found it really, really rewarding to having been someone who felt not invisible necessarily, but not really a part of everything that was going on across the country and especially in government. To be a part of the commission where we're making sure that AAPIs everywhere are included and are not invisible, and making sure that they do know that these resources and tools exist to help, progress themselves and their families and friends within the Asian American community. I'm also excited to start jumping on board different initiatives like the White House Bullying Prevention Task Force, which we just started helping AAPI students everywhere. So there's different segments and that I think are especially important, helping them share their voice and their issues and their problems, and making sure they have tools and resources to better themselves and prevent bullying and harassment in the present and future. And with all of this, I think sharing stories is the strongest act anybody can participate in, which is why this AAPI, everywhere matters so much, because it doesn't matter where you are or what kind of, position you're in or what industry or what age group or where you live. AAPIs everywhere matter and need to spread that story and share that story. It's the only way the rest of the world, and even the young people in our community at large, will understand our capabilities, our contribution, our beauty, and our place in that American story that you just talked about.
Thank you, Billy. That's awesome. And I think you made a really great segue to what I was going to talk about, which is announcing for the first time our administration-wide summit, the White House Summit on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And before I do that, I know we put up the screen, I just wanted to mention that Aditi decided to show up for our Google Hangout. So hi, Aditi.
Hi, how are you?
I was telling them how you thought you were way too important for us.
Way too important.
So,
sorry for being tardy to the party, everyone.
Yeah, I know.
But thank you so much for having me, Kiran. So I think I've probably met most folks, but I'm Aditi Hardikar, Associate Director at the White House Office of Public Engagement. I'm also the AAPI liaison and the LGBT liaison. So really looking forward to continuing to work with Kiran and Jason on the summit. Yeah. I know we have some really interesting and creative and exciting plans. And if anyone has input, we're always, I think we're starting to embrace the spirit of crowdsourcing. And so if there are any ideas people have, we're always happy to have those.
And so I was just about to talk a little bit about the summit and share, one that it's happening on May 12th. This, coming up in a couple, 2.5 months. And so I was actually thinking about this. I really don't think it's unreasonable. I think, are we at 19 million Asian Americans? I don't think it's unreasonable to expect all those 19 million in DC for the White House Summit. I think we can accommodate most of them. But our point being, and I think Billy spoke so well to this, which is, how meaningful it is to be here in Washington, D.C. that week, May 11th through 15th. There's a number of events taking place by different groups, a lot of different agencies. So a lot of interesting activities to engage in. Also, it's just a great opportunity to network. I mean, I loved how Billy talked about like just that whole experience of meeting people. You know, he didn't think he would be able to, you know, that he kind of, you know, got to meet where he is in Chicago, and, you know, hearing about the stories, getting those experiences, sharing like really a lot of common experiences and interests around what you're trying to do in your own community. I mean, to feel in many ways validated with all the great work you're doing around health issues, education, you know, if you're working with veterans, if we're working on worker rights, or even, you know, the issues that Billy talked about around bullying and harassment in our schools. I mean, these are all the different issues that we're going to talk about, but also at the same time, you know, this opportunity to engage with senior officials here at the White House and at the different federal agencies to kind of, you know, hear directly from them, from cabinet secretaries about what their agencies are doing on behalf of our community, and just to have that experience so you yourself can get a sense of what this administration's been doing, but also, you know, what we do hope is that you're taking it back to your communities. So, you know, that's a big part of it. You know, we also want to have a lot of fun, so there's going to be performances and API celebrities. I'm actually excited about that. So we want to mix it up, you know, so it's just going to be a lot of fun. All of us hanging out together. You know, we're going to be at the George Washington University campus, so with, you know, a lot of students on campus, but really, you know, tons of folks coming into Washington, D.C. And honestly, many of you who I've talked to in person and on the phone, you know, I've told all of you that it really would not be the same without, you know, having folks who come from all over the country. So this is really not about something that just happens here for, you know, as much as I love Konrad and Aditi, I see them all the time. I don't really care about hanging out with them as much as seeing many of our friends and colleagues who are around the country. So that's a little bit about the summit. I know, you know, we were also going to talk about the agency accomplishments. So that was one other thing that we wanted to announce today as part of this Google Hangout is that you know, really since, you know, the initiative and commission have been together in the first year of the president's tenure, is working with federal agencies, more than 24 of them, as part of our executive order to create these agency plans or strategic plans on how they're going to improve access and participation in all their various programs, especially for underserved Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And, you know, what we do is not only, you know, these plans come together, but a big part of that is talking about the accomplishments. So they submit progress reports every year, which they've done, which we publish every year, and so that holds true for this year as well. We're announcing, you know, the latest list of accomplishments and their progress reports, which are really, really, you know, exciting if you're a policy wonk. But I think what's really interesting, if we're talking about the theme, Konrad, about APAs everywhere, I know a big issue also for the community is about being counted. You know, so we know that our community is growing, but one of the frustrating pieces is when Asians are ticked off as other, or you know, we don't further disaggregate the subgroups within Asian Americans, because we know that our communities are so diverse, and there are some differences. And so what we found, and what you'll see in this accomplishments report, is quite a few agencies now moving forward, further disaggregating data. So, you know, the Department of Labor report came out, which gives a better picture of how Asian Americans are doing in the labor market. They've added, I think, 7 additional subgroups to really give a more nuanced understanding of that, and we're really hoping also that they'll continue to do that in years to come. HUD has also really followed the path of census and further disaggregating data for their housing survey. And then finally, you know, as a part of the Affordable Care Act, I know we've talked a lot about, you know, the tremendous enrollment and just being able to reach community members who are uninsured. But there's a part of that legislation that also allows for further disaggregation. 7 additional subgroups for Asian American, 4 for Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders, and they're incorporating that into many of their surveys. So that's becoming like an example of what you're starting to see around at the various agencies, and we're really excited about that because we know we do know APAs are everywhere, but we need to know exactly what they look like and what are some of the issues that that they're being impacted by. So anyway, Aditi, I was kind of doing your job too.
Thank you.
So
that's the beauty of Kiran.
Okay.
She can do 5 million jobs at once.
So can I hand over you to field some of the questions?
Okay. Yeah. So I know that folks were sort of asking questions on the Google Plus page and on Twitter. I'm wondering if we can open it up for questions. And it looks like the first one we got was, how can we exhibit the hashtag APA everywhere in our communities during hashtag APAHM 2015, APAM 2015, and that of course is tagged hashtag WeAPI. So let me just ask that question again without all the hashtags. How can we exhibit APA everywhere in our communities, especially during AAPI History Month this year?
Konrad, you'd be good at that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I think what the work with the White House Initiative has been doing with the summit is just amazing. I mean, all the planning that's been going on, I've gotten bits and pieces, and as Billy had articulately said, there is this path to this sense of belonging that runs its way in the Capitol, and I think it's really important that we would have a large summit that brings together people from the communities, people from the agencies that represent them, as well as the officials across the country to be able to have those conversations. And so I think it's a real tribute to, from me to you to say that I'm looking forward to the summit. The theme itself, as I was listening to Billy and Aditi and Kiran, the theme itself is there to spark discovery as we think about our stories or the stories of our neighbors, our family members, people that live in our neighborhood, that to discover the experience, the Asian Pacific American experience, however it's been lived or however you interpret it, in all the unlikely places as well as the likely places. We expect to see Asian Pacific Americans in American history. We expect to see a lot of our understanding of our communities is reflected in the stories told in books or in museums. And a lot of times we also discover that we find our experience globally as well as locally. Maybe to find a story within your own neighborhood that you had discovered that, wow, Asian Pacific Americans have been in this neighborhood for a very long time. Or you find it in other more challenging facets of the American story, where we think about for examples such as like homelessness or poverty, that we would discover that this is something that affects many people and that we're contributing to improving the lives of others by recognizing all those lives as they've lived in some of these experiences. So with that in mind, one of the things that would be terrific for what we hope to do is by sharing this theme, hashtag APA everywhere, that people will embrace and adopt this theme in some of their own celebrations that they have planned for Heritage Month, or that they would be able to take to social media and take pictures of what they interpret that theme to be and share that and hashtag that so that it can be shared collectively. We hope that people would be able to take their creative passions and interpret what APA everywhere means to them for Heritage Month and share it however passion finds itself, whether it's in dances or music or again pictures, in lots of other ways that I think people out there in the world across the country have a voice in. We also have a website for the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center, SmithsonianAPA.org. That's SmithsonianAPA.org. And we're going to have a page there where we're going to share some of the things that we'll be doing through the month, such as releasing a special edition of collections that tell an alternate story of Asian Pacific America. We'll be having lots of social media things that will be going on that will be there to celebrate the month itself. So I'm hoping that people out there will interpret that theme and take it as their own, because for us it's about being a catalyst for thinking about the American story through the perspective of others, and for quite frankly, for some of us, that's our story. And we're so happy to be able to share it and hope that people will enjoy discovering it as much as I enjoy discovering other people's stories.
And I was just going to say, you know, building off of that, the theme and what people can do in their community, we're actually going to be very soon, in a couple of weeks, working with Department of Interior on a webinar that's going to be focused on their AAPI Heritage Initiative. And so their interest is in actually moving towards getting more sites designated on the historic register, as well as historic landmarks. And so I think this is a part of where you're talking about what does that APA Everywhere mean to you, not only kind of what's in the here and now, but also telling that story of where what our path has been, and you know, where our experiences are in our own communities. And so I think all of this really ties into telling, retelling, making sure that our story is out there, but then also as we grow as a community, you know, really having also those contributions noticed, as well as the community itself and some of the challenges that it faces.
Yeah, I've often said that, you know, of the 12 months we have a year, you know, in a year, this is the one month in which the focus, and rightfully and supported by everyone, is to say, how is your American experience yours? What is your American experience? And I think it's a great opportunity to take that that venue of recognition and be able to share how we are unique, but also part of this great fabric of a country.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, certainly we as people who, you know, work in Washington, D.C., we're so, you know, sometimes just so focused on things that are happening in the Beltway, so to speak. I think this sort of embodying that spirit is so important, and I think that's why, you know, particularly this summit is so important. And so, Kiran, you know, I think one of the questions we got on social media was, why is it important for any org to come to the summit during AAPI History Month? You know, given the spirit in mind, and what is sort of the benefit? What, you know, why does that make sense?
No, I think it's important. And you know, what I've been telling a lot of the community leaders that we meet with and talk with is that, you know, and when I'm out there hearing about the stories, or our staff is out there, oftentimes I worry about, you know, making sure that the work that you're doing and the issues that you're working on actually are you know, reach the national stage. You know, it's like it could be very important with, you know, the work that's happening, let's say in New York City or Chicago, or even, you know, in Philadelphia. But you know, and it's so specific to kind of, you know, people are very kind of focused on what's happening in their local communities, like and just absorbed in that. And that takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of need, and so oftentimes I think they're doing such great work that just doesn't get noticed. And so I've been encouraging many of them, you know, whether, you know, however many folks they can bring, you know, to come out. There's opportunities to talk about their work and the sessions at the summit. Also, there's going to be other events happening here, and you know, we're also wanting to partner with groups to make sure that that they have, you know, whether it's at the summit or during that week, they have an opportunity to highlight. You know, so I've talked with Native Hawaiian educators, advocates who are working on domestic violence issues, especially in the South Asian community. I think many times, even though you know, you feel like DC is not really your space, or let's say, I always joke, in California and Hawaii, DC is an afterthought because it's like just literally so far away. But if you want to elevate those issues, like, this is the place and this is the time to do it.
Yeah.
And I just want to add, and when you come to Washington, you can visit the amazing Smithsonian Institution.
Yes.
Like 19 museums, 7 research centers, as well as our exhibition, Beyond Bollywood,
Exactly.
Indian Americans Shape the Nation. I mean, again, the path of belonging is participating in your institutions, but also seeing your cultural institutions. And the Smithsonian, it's free. You can come in. It's supported by the people. That's why it's free.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, sort of to Kiran's point, I think something that, especially in the White House, we are interested in is stories. I think we've all seen the incredible power of storytelling, whether it was sort of the president's first 2 campaigns, or even now advocating for the work that we do. So I think, you know, another sort of benefit of you all and your orgs and you as ambassadors from your communities to coming to the summit is to really being a storyteller. And I think, we're always trying to find ways to highlight those stories on a national level, and as we do our engagement, whether you're a DACA recipient from 2012, or an ACA navigator, we want to hear that story. We want to make sure that AAPI stories are imbued in every sort of aspect of engagement that we're doing here at the White House. So as if we didn't give you enough reasons to come to the summit, please do. And I actually, Billy, I know that we have you in even colder Chicago. Looking forward to coming back and coming to one of your restaurants. Just my own little plug. But we had a question from one of our followers, and that was, what's your favorite food and favorite dish to cook?
I have to say my favorite food is Filipino food because it's my comfort food. It's the food that I grew up on. My Lola grandmother lived with us. And although it was not seen in the mainstream as incredibly popular or desirable at the time, I'm starting to see at our restaurant Sun more and more people are starting to order it. And what's really cool about Filipino food and cooking it is that it's a melting pot of so many different cultures throughout Asia and even on to Spain and America. And so my favorite thing to do, to answer your question, is, for instance, I do a lot of cooking demos. I've been on Good Morning America and the Today Show, and the Today Show asked me to cook my version of an all-American Thanksgiving turkey. And so I made a Filipino turkey. So I like doing mashups, like Filipino-American, Asian-American mashups. Because that's what I am, I think.
What is a Filipino turkey, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah.
Well, what I did was I took some really popular dishes. It's called chicken inasal, and I applied it to a turkey with a longanisa sausage and papaya stuffing, which Matt Lauer, if you look at the clips, was like eating it off his fingers. I don't even know turkey could be like that. So I like sharing the culture. To the point of all these comments, is it's sharing stories. It's the story of the Sunday comfort food that my Lola made that I applied to the all-American turkey to share with the world.
And thank you for sharing your delicious, delicious food with us. And so I had a question actually for Kiran, but I think Konrad and probably Billy can answer this too. I think, in the last 5 years we have so much to be proud of with the work that we've done, advocating for our communities, advocating at the White House, at the initiative, at sort of across the agencies. I would love to know sort of what accomplishment or accomplishments are you most proud of? I know there are a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to pick, but if you could, pick one, what would that be?
What? Maybe like 5? I don't know.
Right.
So I think, okay, I'm just going to list them and probably no particular order, but I think, a big part of, I think, the success and just is our level of engagement all across the country. Just hundreds of roundtables and meetings and actually regional summits that we've done over the years. And now that we have an infrastructure in place with our amazing regional interagency working group in the 10 federal regions, we have kind of like our all-star players out in the regions, almost about 200 of them, who are holding roundtables and working directly with the community to solicit concerns and what are problems that they're facing in their communities, but then also being able to share resources that are so critically important. Because I think one thing we realized, as a part of this effort was, also trying to build an understanding inside the federal government of who the Asian American Pacific Islander community is, and really understanding the diversity and the complexity of that. And from that, we've done some interesting projects like working with Filipino World War II veterans around issues of compensation, focusing on nail salon workers and some of the challenges they face in the workplace. We held a summit in Guam last year, and from that we created a Pacific Island task force that was a way for us to really hold ourselves accountable and working with a lot of the different agencies so that we could make sure that just the kind of challenging issues that region is facing in health, education, homelessness, that we can do some of that follow up. So I think just there is a long list that I'm really, really proud of, but I think also I'm just really proud of just the amazing staff and interns that we have who are so committed to this work, and I think that's also inspiring as well for me.
That's really great. Yeah. I think something that just wanted to point out from today, I think this sort of speaks to one of the things I'm proud of is the president's commitment to our community, and not sort of seeing our community as a different silo, but sort of integral into the various aspects of the president's agenda. So for instance, today the president met with a group of immigration leaders, and there were I think about a dozen leaders that were in the room. There were 4 AAPIs represented, and I think that was such a powerful example of how the president really really sees the community as an integral partner in his top priorities. So personally for me, I think that was something today that I thought was really special and I was proud of.
That's great.
Is there anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's a number of things that I find myself feeling very content about, and one is knowing that sort of the cultural work of this nation, I'm not alone in doing it, and that there are amazing regional Asian Pacific American museums and film festivals out there that really believe in telling and sharing the story of Asian Pacific American history, art, and culture. For the Smithsonian, we've worked with some of these organizations where we have had different events, and some of them I think actually, things that I'm really proud of. From the Smithsonian Folklife Festival on the Mall back in 2010, which looked at Asian Pacific Americans and telling the story of those communities in the area. We have an exhibition called I Want the White American Earth, an Asian Pacific American story, which helped determine a theme a couple of years ago. And that's traveling. That exhibition is traveling across the country right now and is available for extra bookings. And the idea, if you're interested, the idea is to bring these exhibitions out from the Smithsonian, from the Capitol to the neighborhoods around the country, so that people have an excuse in that community to come out and look and see APA everywhere. We also have Beyond Bollywood, which I'm extremely proud about, and having that open at one of the most popular museums in the world, the Smithsonian Museums, and it's the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. It took a number of years to be able to detail, again, the American dream from the perspective of South Asian Indian Americans. And also, we've done some very interesting things lately with our pop-up exhibitions, where we see the Asian Pacific American experience as interwoven with other ones. So we have an Asian Latino project where we did pop-up art by Asian Pacific American / Latino artists interpreting that experience. I think there's just a lot to be proud about when we think about the cultural work that's done, not the ones that I've just expressed, but I see inspiration in the cultural work in a lot of colleagues around the country, and that is just a real joy, to have.
That's great. Billy, I wanted to ask you another question. We're getting a lot on social media directed at you. You're pretty popular. I know that you've been working really hard on this issue, and you've shown really great leadership, and we're also thankful to have you as one of the faces of somebody really pushing hard for this issue. But what can we do as a community, as us APAs everywhere, what can we do to prevent bullying and to show that AAPI students are supported, and also kind of showing that AAPI students are represented, unfortunately, in a population that is bullied in school? And so what can we do?
So I think that's a great, I was actually going to say when we were talking about accomplishments, I'm super excited about everything that's going on with the White House Bullying Prevention Task Force, especially because there's this collaboration that I got to witness and be a part of, where the Department of Justice, Department of Education, Department of Human Health Services are all getting together to really fight this huge problem that affects everyone. And of course, being that AAPIs are affected more than any other ethnicity, in most cases, just blows my mind. Really pulled me in, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. I think with this whole theme of AAPI, AAPA everywhere, it's about communication. It's about sharing. Back when I was, but I grew up half Filipino and half mixed European, half white. And I didn't look like anyone in my class or my neighborhood, and I didn't even look like my parents, and I didn't look like my cousins. So much of bullying has a lot to do with just being different. And so I was bullied. And back then, there was no real distinction about what you could or couldn't do or what you should or shouldn't say. There was no real communication. I think these days it's a lot better because there's a lot of support, especially coming out of the task force. StopBullying.gov is a resource and tool that's available to everyone, and it's free and instantaneous and accessible and should be shareable amongst this APA everywhere theme. Just talking about bullying before it happens, letting it be something that's out there instead of suppressed is something that will make huge differences, not just from people like us, but for kids, on the ground, letting it be talked about openly with teachers, with family members, with adults they trust, or even friends, just having these conversations, letting it be out there, and so that people can kind of come together and agree, and they do, that bullying is wrong. And I think if that gets integrated into all the different levels of all the different stories we can talk about during APA Everywhere sort of efforts, a lot of good will come out of it. And by the way, I have to say also, I'm super excited that the task force and the administration has been so great to put not only that website together and but the tools. I have the tools to now start in March is when I kick off going to different schools speaking on behalf of the initiative and everything that's going on with the Bullying Prevention Task Force. And I imagine if you're out there and you're listening and you feel like it's something that really needs to come to your area or you want some information about it, please contact us.
Thanks so much, Billy. And we are looking forward to having you represent AAPI in the White House as you go from school to school talking about bullying. So we really appreciate you and your leadership. Great. Did we have any other questions coming from social media?
No, I think we did. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I want to thank all of you first and foremost for getting on this Google Hangout. I love that we can do this, and I love that AAPI and the White House are engaging folks everywhere. APA is everywhere in different sort of new and creative and fun ways. It's definitely more fun to be on a Google Hangout than to be on a conference call. So I appreciate that. I want to thank our wonderful guests, Konrad and Kiran.
And I have to definitely make a couple of announcements before we close out.
Great.
Okay?
So actually now I'm going to turn it over to Kiran because I think she has a couple of announcements.
Thank you. Thank you. Because we have to do our shameless plug at the very end. So make sure that especially for us, that our office, even though we're kind of front facing, really the work gets done by these awesome interns. So so what you actually see behind us is all of that work. And so we have our upcoming deadline March 15th for summer session for interns. We really, really encourage you to apply. It's an amazing, amazing experience. We have a lot of documentation to show for that. So if you have any interest, go to whitehouse.gov/AAPI. Also, if you have questions about what we've talked about today, whether it's around the summit, around the bullying task force efforts that Billy's involved in, if you'd like to host a listening session or have Billy come out or one of the other commissioners, please just, you can email us at whitehouseaapi@ed.gov. That's whitehouseaapi@ed.gov. Or you can just post a question on Twitter or on Facebook, and also like us on YouTube. These are all these different ways to get in touch. I think hopefully I've covered everything.
Forgot about Google Plus.
Google Plus, yeah. I'm sure I'll hear about it later. Anything I left out.
No, yeah, and again, we really would love to have you at our May 12th summit again because we are in Washington and we sort of sometimes get stuck in the Washington way of thinking. So I think having as much representation from APAs everywhere is really something that will make this a successful summit. Konrad, did you have anything to close with?
Well, I just want to say thank you again for the invitation to join, and glad to, honored to be sharing the Google Hangout with Billy, who's on the screen right there. He's one cool
Thanks,
dude.
Billy.
One cool dude. And
hat.
with the hat, he's got. Next time we shall all have hats. We'll have hats. But for us, the Smithsonian right now, the Asian Pacific American Center, we have the I Want the White American Earth exhibition that's traveling across the country. Right now, I think it's at Riverside, California. We have our Beyond Bollywood exhibition, which is on now at the National Museum of Natural History, and that exhibition will tour as well. It's actually starting to tour during Heritage Month.
That's great.
And I think Morristown, New Jersey. Visit our website, smithsonianapa.org, to find out a number of the other things that we have planned in the coming months and years, as well as, again, to discover the APA Everywhere theme and to use that in all the things that you feel are appropriate for Heritage Month. But
great.
I'm really glad to be part of this and to share this all with you.
Great. Thanks,
Thanks,
Billy.
everyone.
Billy, you have any last words?
No, I'm excited to see everyone on May 12th. That's it. We're going to be in DC. It's May. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have so much fun. I can't wait.
Awesome.
That's great.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you.